I think it's really important to have authentic brand values, and I think a lot of companies quite easily fall into the trap of having very generic brand values. People are starting to realize the power of, say, personal branding and having a strong voice. The things that you're awake thinking about at 2 a.m., 9 times out of 10 are probably going to be more related to work than they are going to be your personal life.
If our job is to reflect society, what role do we play in shaping it? Let's get into the real questions with no filter.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to our No Filter interview series with the Marketing Club of New York and Summer Friday. We're really excited to announce our guest today. We have the CEO of CopyHouse, Kathryn Strachan. Kathryn, can you just introduce yourself? Give us a little bit of your background.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everybody. I'm Kathryn Strachan, and I'm the CEO of CopyHouse. CopyHouse, we're a content marketing agency that specializes in complex industries. So we help companies bring their messaging to life in a way that their audience can understand. And we do this across insurance, financial services, healthcare, technology. And we do this with content strategy, where we help them define their core messaging and identifying what those messages are that their audience wants and needs to hear. And then once that content strategy set, we go into production. When it comes to production, we do copywriting, design, and social media. I've been in marketing for about 15 years now. I started my career at Lloyds Bank, which is one of the big financial institutions in the UK, and grew my career within the financial service industry before launching my agency. So I've always come from a more technical, more nerdy background. That's definitely me. Today, outside of CopyHouse, I host a podcast called Tech Marketers Uncorked. I also just finished writing my book called Scaling Success, Building Brands That Break Barriers. And yeah, that's coming out in September, which I'm really excited about. It's all about how you can elevate your brand and build brand awareness so that you can start getting really good momentum in the market. So that's kind of me in a nutshell.
So talking to you through the Marketing Club of New York, which really focuses on young career development, getting people out of college into the marketing field. So can you just give us a little background, what school you went to and what kind of got you into this field in the first place?
Yeah, it's actually kind of a funny story. I mean, I have 2 degrees in English literature. So I did my undergrad at the University of Southern Maine in English lit, and then I did my master's in London at UCL in modern literature. So I have always had a background in writing and being able to craft compelling narratives around technical topics. So I wrote my dissertation on Complex Theories of Time and Alice in Wonderland, which I found super fascinating. And I've always been really good at like seeing all these threads and pulling them together to like create a hypothesis and then support that hypothesis, which in a lot of ways is like what marketing strategies do. How I got into marketing, though, is a different story. So when I first moved here, I wasn't able to work. So I did dog walking, cash in hand. And my very first dog walking client was a vice president of marketing at Yelp, the review site. And after a few years of like walking her dog and watching her dog, she invited me to come into the office as a marketing executive. And they had a copywriter on the team. And I thought it was a really cool job. So that's kind of how I ended up in marketing. And it wasn't necessarily via my degree. I think universities generally do a pretty poor job at like teaching you what you can do with your degrees. So, as an English lit major, they wanted me to go into academia or publishing, both of which aren't super creative. So, weren't things that I necessarily really wanted to do. I didn't feel like they aligned with who I was and what I wanted. So I think, I kind of fell into marketing. It wasn't really planned. And I think it's one thing that universities really should step up their game in is, helping you to understand your different career options, because being able to write, being able to speak, being able to, convince somebody of an idea is something that is really applicable in a lot of different roles and is not just for publishing and academia.
Well, so one of the things we like to dive in, and I think you're a perfect person to have here, is really looking at what's happening in the marketplace and how we can lean into that as marketers. And so one of the first trends that we wanted to touch on was, what's going on with the creative economy and informational storytelling. And especially, I know, you mentioned a lot of the industries and you work in, especially in the B2B space.
Yeah, I think it's quite interesting because the creator economy when it comes into B2B is very different than in B2C. When we say creator economy in B2C, you instantly go to influencers or user generated content, where in B2B it tends to be about employee advocacy. So getting your team and the hundreds of people that work at an organization to help support that organization and create content for it. Or from an influencer perspective, it tends to be around personal branding and, executive profile building. So, creating a front runner for your company, or even getting front runners of other companies in the industry who are perhaps already established to, help endorse your product, to, talk about it. So influencer marketing has shaped the B2B landscape, but has not yet made as such a big of an impact as it has in B2C. And I think there's quite a lot of room and potential there, both for building executive profiles, because it's only really something that people are starting to think about, but also using these executive profiles from other brands to help build credibility of your own brand, which at the end of the day is, influencer marketing, but in a new and different way. And there's some really interesting things that I think are coming because people are starting to realize the power of, say, personal branding and having a strong voice and being recognized as an industry leader. The biggest challenge at the moment that kind of holds them back from that is, a lot of these executives and the senior people who they would build profiles for are CTOs, CFOs who don't necessarily understand, why they should be doing that. I mean, we help build executive profiles, and when we start working with clients, it's amazing to see the results that it unlocks.
Yeah, I imagine to your point, it's not exactly in the skill set or the focus of a lot of executives, and it's not something they had to do to get where they are. So it's a big learning curve.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Okay, so let's flip over to, I wanted to touch on really looking at companies and brands as a source of connection. I know, there's been a lot in the media and the marketplace around aligning to brand values and aligning to, what matters to you. But what do you see occurring in the marketplace, whether it's B2B or B2C?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really important to have authentic brand values. And I think a lot of companies quite easily fall into the trap of having very generic brand values. But who that brand is really, if you can tap into that, really allows you to create an emotional connection with the audience. So regardless of B2C or B2B, it's really about tapping into that more psychological, deeper, emotive level, that makes people remain loyal customers and come back to you time and time again. I think a lot of brands struggle with this though, because it's very difficult to create authentic values and then to roll out these values across the brand to make it something, because it can't just be, a word on paper. It really has to be something that you're going to live and breathe and that really truly represents who you are. And a lot of, when you get too many cooks in the kitchen trying to do it, or you get too many shareholders trying to do it, or it becomes complicated and convoluted, and you end up with, very vanilla values that don't actually make the impact that they should. So I think if you can do it and you can do it right, it's incredibly powerful. But I think most brands really struggle to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's interesting. We've had a lot of conversations with companies recently where it's an understanding over how much it's top down versus bottom up, and the combination of the two, and understanding, what do your employees care about, and how can you lean into that and live up to those ideals, and provide them with an environment that they feel fully connected to.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's great for employee retention as well as, connecting with your external audience. I mean, when we talk about audiences, I think it's important to think about everybody who's your audience, and not just people that you sell to, but also, employees. It might also be investors. It might also be, other people within the company. So, I mean, there's lots of different profiles that make up your audience, and it's not always just about the people that you sell to.
Yeah. Well, and especially if you lean back to what you said at the very beginning, using employees as influencers and understanding that they're out in the marketplace talking about your company and representing your company every day.
Yeah, well, they're far more likely to do that if they actually are aligned with the values and, if they are quite purpose driven.
Mm-hmm. Love it. So just talk to me a little bit about what other trends you're seeing today, with whether it's client focused trends that you're seeing, or what you're seeing in the industry overall.
Yeah, I mean, I think probably one of the biggest trends and a trend that I'm always kind of banging on about is emotive marketing within, especially within the B2B landscape. I think it's only been within the last couple of years that brands have realize that, people have emotions at work as well as at home. And, tapping into these allows them to help their customers in sometimes their darkest moments. So, I mean, I really believe in the power of emotive marketing in B2B. I mean, I think that B2B is often more emotive than B2C because, the things that you're awake thinking about at 2 a.m., 9 times out of 10 are probably going to be more related to work than they are going to be your personal life. And the decisions you make in B2B are so much more often have a higher price tag and higher risks as well if you make the wrong decision. So there's a lot of uncertainty and a big need for brand credibility and like brand relationships. You also have a longer sales cycle that you're trying to work with. So you really have to think about how you're going to nurture this audience throughout that sales cycle. Emotive marketing really allows you to develop these deep relationships that are far more effective, especially at scale, than what your salespeople can do on a one-to-one basis. So, I mean, I'm a really big believer in the power of B2B, of emotive marketing in the B2B landscape, and I'm always kind of advocating for it.
All right, so rounding back up to, where we started and your background and your school, what's one piece of advice you would give to young marketers today?
I guess never be afraid to ask for a coffee. I've built most of my career with networking and, getting to know people and asking people for coffees. And you'd be amazed how many people will like say yes, even like a big CEO of the company that you work for will, take a coffee with you or, will take some time to impart their wisdom. Most people like to share their insights, and having those coffees not only teaches you perhaps of like potential career options, but also helps you unlock opportunities or even get known within your current organization. But, it really comes down to your network. And I really love the saying, your network is your net worth. And I'm a big believer that that is definitely true.
Well, Kathryn, this has been really amazing. I appreciate you jumping on the phone with us. It's great to hear all of your insights, and I look forward to connecting with you again soon.
Thank you for having me.
Yes, thank you very much.